Frankie Landau Banks by E. Lockhart is a novel that chronicles our protagonist, Frankie, through her sophomore year of boarding school. More specifically, the novel tells readers of Frankie's rise and fall from power of the ultra-secret, ultra-exclusive Club of Basset Hounds. Her rise to power was achieved through a masterful, though her peers describe it as psychotic, manipulation of stereotypical gender roles. It's through Frankie's manipulation and use of archetypal gender roles that the disreputable history of Frankie Landau Banks is like a pair of high-heeled sneakers. Why not just high heels or simply sneakers, you ask, because Frankie's utilization of both the stereotypes of masculinity and femininity is too embedded that the two cannot be separated or defined fully by just one. Let's first consider high heels and sneakers separately. High heels are a perfect symbol of femininity, and they have been for decades. Or at least until women started wearing them in the 1600s, but ironically, women only began to do so because men wore them first. Back then, men wearing high heels was a symbol of high social status or wealth, because only a man who doesn't have to work would be able to wear a shoe so impractical. This tidbit alone links high heels to Frankie, a female who only wanted to join the all-male Bassets because just like changing a fashion trend in footwear, no one had done so yet. Back to the history of heels, though. Predictably, as more and more women started to wear them, men stopped because with the majority of women wearing them, the connotation of heels shifted from being that of high status and power to that of women at the time, as being foolish and effeminate. Fast forward to the 19th century, where photography was emerging as a new technology, giving birth to the construction of the female self-image. Pornography was the first industry to make serious use of this new technology and used it to take dirty pictures of nude women wearing only high heels. It is this association to porn that gives heels their connotation of being sexy, a fact that remains true today. As well with history, biologically, heels even make the perfect symbol for femininity. High heels force the wearer, which is still majoritively women, into a natural courting pose seen in animals, which is politely described as an arched back and protruding buttocks. In addition to this visual, high heels also make it harder for the wearer to run, therefore to run away from animals and wildlife. In other words, people who wear high heels are easier pickings for others looking for a mate. Or that's what it physically makes them look like. The result of these biological and historical contexts of heels gives us the ultimate symbol of femininity. People who wear heels, mainly women, are automatically viewed, through no other actions of their own, as being more sexy and desirable. Sneakers, on the complete opposite end of the shoe spectrum, then represent the complete opposite of femininity, masculinity. Sneakers literally got their name based on one of the attributes that differentiates them from heels the most. It is almost impossible to hear someone entering a room with sneakers on. They're silent. Heels, with their constant clack-clack, are a dead giveaway. The popularity of sneakers really took off in the 1920s when Converse introduced their Converse All-Stars made exclusively for basketball players. Chuck Taylor, basketball star and legend, endorsed them, giving them the name we know today. Other shoe companies hoped to have the same success, which they did, by creating sneakers exclusively for male-dominated sports, and adopting a male athlete to give them a celebrity endorsement. Such creations as Nike's Air Jordans followed. Sneakers only began to be worn fashionably after James Dean donned them in the cult film classic Rebel Without a Cause in the 1950s. A coincidence or a nod to this fact that even this small piece of information is found in the novel, as Alpha is described as been watching Rebel Without a Cause. Just like in the history of heels, women also began to adopt this male-dominated trend into their own wardrobes, twisting the traditional uses and connotations of the original product. However, whereas heels hinder the wearer's physical abilities and what is seen as feminine, sneakers are literally designed to make the wearer a professional athlete. It is sneakers' association with professional, historically male athletes that gives them their masculine connotation. Someone wearing sneakers then is viewed as active, strong, and physically able to do anything, providing a masculine symbol to heels' feminine one. Now, how does this all apply to Frankie Landau Banks? Frankie is arguably a woman, not a girl anymore. This recent development into womanhood was a surprise to everyone, and one that catapulted Frankie from anonymity to capturing the eye of one of the popular and beautiful crowd. This first encounter between Frankie and Matthew Livingston is just a small snippet of Frankie completely utilizing the stereotypical traits of femininity. In fact, the scene is such an appropriate example of the hindering effects of wearing high heels that the scene would have still made perfect narrative sense had Lockhart completely forgone the bike accident and simply had Frankie, wearing high heels, fall into her waiting male's arms. What's more is that Matthew and all of his friends in the novel expect Frankie to behave the way that high heels societally connotate her to behave, which she does, but what they don't know is her ulterior agenda for doing so, which is where Frankie's metaphorical sneakers come on. Specifically, in Frankie's method of carrying out the Alpha's grand plans. To put on a sneaker, a wearer must first cover their bare foot with a sock. In Frankie's scenario, she is the foot and her online alias is the sock, which effectively served as a mask for her true, bare identity. Next comes the actual putting on of the sneaker, or in Frankie's case, her adoption of Alpha's identity. All done very easily, both in reality and the metaphorical sense. Putting on a shoe takes little to zero effort, equal to the effort it takes to type in a name different than Frankie Landau Banks. Lastly comes the difficult part, the tying of the shoelaces. This takes actual effort and skill. It is a steady practice and process, equivalent to the way that Frankie artfully planned, directed, and delegated her complex schemes to be carried out. The sneaker and the shoelace also serve as a perfect metaphor for Frankie's undoing, which ironically was also caused by a single string found in the wrong place at the wrong time by the true Alpha. Just like to begin taking off a sneaker only takes the slightest of tugs at a single shoelace, Frankie's entire persona came undone through a single chance of misfortune that led to the entire reveal of removing her sneaker and her sock, leaving just Frankie Landau Banks, or just a plain foot. As described, Frankie needed both the connotations of the sneaker and the heel to carry out her plan. Had she not utilized her femininity, she would have never been able to attract Matthew, which led her to the intel she needed on the Basset Hounds. But without her sneaker-like mentality, her gained intelligence would have been meaningless. The disreputable history of Frankie Landau Banks truly is best represented by a high-heeled sneaker, which combines the best of both femininity and masculinity. High-heeled sneakers actually do exist, and they're awesome despite what anybody says about them, just like Frankie is, despite the fact that to some, her plan was crazy or psychotic. It took courage, brains, and strength in addition to beauty. Which is more that could be said of sneakers or heels alone.